of this archetype.
Taking a look here, we even get the chance to see Corey Burkhart's hand here off an Inquisition of Kozilek. And playing your favorite archetype here, Reed.
Yeah, Jund, we talked about at the beginning of the day. This, like Grixis, it's a deck where you don't get too many free wins. You're more reliant on having the right answers at the right time, having a deep sideboard, and having hopefully a foil to most of the matchups you can face in a long tournament. But this matchup in particular is where it's one that you don't see that often in Modern. Usually you're seeing one or often both decks are very, very fast and proactive, and the game's going to be over one way or the other very quickly. Not so in this matchup. Both players are going to be ready to go deep into this game, battle with 2-for-1 cards, Planeswalkers, Snapcaster Mages, Bloodbraid Elves. We're going to see it all.
Awesome. Here we go. Field of Ruin activation here from Burkhart, who is letting us know what cards Sayhack has already seen in his hand.
Now, Sayhack is missing land drops. He's not really doing much in the early turns of the game. For a lot of matchups in Modern, that would be it. It would be the kiss of death. You know, your opponent would be working on assembling Tron or beating you down with lots of power and toughness worth of humans, whatever it might be. It's not quite as much of a disaster in this matchup because Corey's Grixis deck, it doesn't really have anything that's going to punish you for having a slow start. The best Corey can really do is sculpt his hand, make his land drops, get a little 2-for-1 here and there. But the game is not over. Even if Sayhack continues to miss his land drop for a turn or two, Corey's not really going to punish that, at least not in a timely fashion. By the way, that mountain right now is in Corey's hand.
And here we go, Tasigur the Golden Fang for Corey Burkhart.
So we're going to see Corey deploy Tasigur with Logic Knot still in hand to protect from one of those Liliana of the Veils, just in case Sayhack draws his third land. But it looks like now things are starting to slip out of control because he's going to be unable to answer this Tasigur. Corey has him covered with a counterspell for his next threat or answer that he might deploy. So this is looking like it's going to go in favor of the Grixis player.
So is Tasigur what we're looking at for Corey's win conditions?
Yeah, Corey's often it's going to be effectively over before it's literally over. In the case of Grixis control, he's going to get so far ahead on cards. He's going to have a lot of creature removal spells and permission in his hand. Cryptic Command is a card that Corey Burkhart always uses to great effect in this deck. But in terms of actually dealing 20 damage, you're going to be looking at Tasigur, Creeping Tar Pit, Snapcaster Mage, and sometimes a flurry of burn spells to finish things off.
Scavenging Ooze hits the table for Sayhack Oi. Fatal Push, though, is going to deftly deal with it as Tasigur gets in.
Now the dream scenario for Corey getting to pass with all his mana open, permission spell at the ready, or he can just activate Tasigur if he doesn't need to spend his mana on anything else.
Here's a Thoughtseize from Sayhack. See what Corey's going to do here, and sure enough, Logic Knot is going to protect his hand. So why did Corey choose to protect his hand like that?
Well, he has Snapcaster Mage in his hand, which is represents a permission spell in his own right. So this was just a case of why not, from Corey's perspective. He had the mana to spend. He was going to lose a card anyway. And there's really, at this point in the game, not much that can go wrong for him. Here you're going to see him Snapcaster Cryptic Command for max value. He's going to untap with 4 from Tasigur, 2 from Snapcaster, 3 from Creeping Tar Pit, and that's gonna be 9 for lethal.
And it was interesting too. We saw Cryptic Command hit the bin with remarkable speed earlier off of a Thought Scour. But even when it's in the bin, still fair game as far as Snapcaster is concerned. And there's Creeping Tar Pit. And that is enough. Corey Burkhart takes down game number 1 over Sayhack Oi here. Grixis Control versus Jund.
Bit of a no contest there. I had mentioned that this is not the type of matchup where missing a land drop is necessarily the kiss of death, but it was just a little too much from Sayhack there, and Corey being able to assemble Tasigur with some permission backup and actually punish the player who was stumbling.
All right, Reed, what's Hack bringing in? You can't look at his deck list.
Well, the card I would really hope to have in my sideboard for this type of matchup is a Choke. But basically, sideboarding is largely going to be about trimming some of his weaker cards. For example, Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt, cards that are reactive are not going to be very effective against the control deck, and cards that are easily answered and only at a one-for-one basis are also less effective. Sahak, if he's going to win, he really wants to use two-for-one cards like Bloodbraid Elf, Kolaghan's Command. He wants to get value from his Liliana of the Veil. And it's not quite as easy to just say, I'm going to cast a Tarmogoyf and hope it goes all the way, because Corey Burkhart's deck is so dense in answers to one-for-one cards like that. He more wants to prepare himself for a grindy battle where he's fighting over small edges and two-for-ones. Fulminator Mage is a card that he could definitely turn to if he would like, since Corey's deck is pretty mana-hungry. He's got the 3 colors, he's got Creeping Tar Pit, so Fulminator Mage, especially when paired with Kolaghan's Command, when paired with a Planeswalker, can allow him to press an advantage if he gets off to a good start early on.
So what can we look to from Sahak's Jund deck to know that he's really putting the pressure on Corey?
Well, if a Planeswalker gets into play, that could be very difficult for Corey's deck, because Corey will often have to expend... He'll usually have to go through a pretty circuitous route to get a Planeswalker off the battlefield. Things like double burning it, or burning it and then trying to sneak in an attack with a flash creature, maybe Cryptic Command to bounce it and counter on the way back down. So if the game is close and Sahak can get a Planeswalker plus pressure on another axis as well, it's going to be very difficult for Corey. But your question is tricky to answer, because there's not necessarily any one card that's insurmountable for either player. This is more going to be about small edges, 2-for-1s, and usually the player who's gotten 2 or 3 good exchanges and or has a few extra cards left in their hand after the dust settles, that's going to be the player who wins the game.
Shuffling up here for game number 2, Corey Burkhart versus Sahak Oy. Grixis control up a game over Jund. Corey, by the way, 8 Grand Prix top 8s with a team win in Providence. Sahak Oy came in from LA to play this weekend, so welcome to the tournament. I gotta say, it was nice to get off the plane and not have it be 2 degrees.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll take 40.
You have snow where you're from, Maria?
Oh, absolutely, Reed. Mm-hmm. Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Canada of America. I think that's our official state saying. Eduardo, can you confirm that? You've got a lot of snow, though, Reed, up in New York?
We have a little bit on the ground.
Okay.
It's not quite as bad as you, I'm sure. Corey debating a one-lander here. He kept it.
All right.
Maybe I saw incorrectly. We'll see. See how things develop.
Here we go. Game number 2. Sahak leading off with the Dark Confidant.
Yeah, I don't see a second land for Corey.
All right, we're going to take a little shortcut here as we go get the land we need and bolt that Confidant. Bolt the Bob.
So he may have kept his hand on the back of a couple of 1-mana interactive spells, and just by virtue of this being a matchup that's very bad to mulligan it in, because of things running on thin margins and card quantity being very important. But yeah, here you see Corey missing his land drop.
Yeah. All right, and we get to take a look at the hand too. I always feel so shameful when I've kept a bad one and my opponent gets to look at it.
But just like last game, Maria, missing a land drop is not the end. It's only going to be the end if Sahak can actually get something into play that's going to provide a devastating, irreversible advantage, something like a Liliana. But it may be the case that both players are missing land drops, in which case, game on. Whoever draws out of it first is going to have a big advantage.
So Thoughtseize here. What do you like taking?
Geez. So it depends on what Sahak does and does not have answers to. Looks like he's going to take Spell Snare with the logic that, okay, if I draw a source of green mana, I can play Tarmogoyf and potentially just win the game. But there's a lot to think about there. You want to consider the situation where A, Corey does draw land, and B, where Corey does not draw land, and weighing the possibilities and how good or bad each situation is for you is going to inform your decision.
And there's Tarmogoyf for Sahak. Back over to Corey, who's still on one land here. Any way to take a look or draw some cards besides land would be something that he'd be interested in right about now.
Right, something like a Thought Scour would be nice.
Goyf is a 4/5.
So this is getting bad for Corey. He's a couple of steps away from really being able to do anything. He needs to basically find black mana and Fatal Push to take care of this Tarmogoyf, and then he can start playing. But, well, he found black mana.
All right, there we go. Land number 2 for Burkhart.
He may be just playing Tasigur here, which would be good for delving away his graveyard at least, shrinking the Tarmogoyf. So if Sahak cannot answer the Tasigur, it would be a good start. Okay, search for Azcanta.
So this will help smooth out his draws. Back over to Sahak. Life totals 14 to 18. Sahak on 18.
Oh, a nice pickup here. It's a Nile Spellbomb. So he can attack for 4 and then Spellbomb Corey to ensure that A, Corey cannot transform the search for Azcanta, and B, he cannot delve for Tasigur or Logic Knot. I like that play a lot better than simply using Assassin's Trophy on search for Azcanta because Corey is stuck on mana right now.
Right. All those cards in the yard representing mana to cast Tasigur.
Sorry? That's not your name. Oh, Ted?
Let's see what Sahak chooses to do here. There is the Nile Spellbomb.
My play this turn would be attack for 4 and then use Raging Ravine and Swamp to do the Spellbomb. That way you could draw into a 1-mana black spell.
So Tarmogoyf getting in here. Drop Burkhart down to 10, and there's a Spellbomb.
I like this. You could tell he was thinking about the Assassin's Trophy, but my
Oh.
No, that's I don't like it. I think that all Search for Azcanta is doing on this board state is helping Corey draw into a land next turn.
A land.
And here you're giving him a land for free, potentially unlocking the nightmare scenario, which is that Corey gets the free land off of Assassin's Trophy and then draws a land to have 4 mana. I think this was not a good decision from Sahak.
4 mana is so crucial for any control deck that has blue or islands at the ready.
Equally important, he no longer has an answer to Tasigur. So if Tasigur hits the battlefield, say 2 turns from now, it might brick wall or even beat the Tarmogoyf in combat.
Those cards face up, by the way, Corey's hand, and there is land number 4 for Burkhart. And now he's in his comfort zone and says go.
Your tournament is starting at the black gathering point flag. Once again, modern double up.
Sahak here also hitting land number 4. Right there's the elf. Scavenging Ooze is what we find.
Okay, so Corey with a lot of options. Even if you only look at the one card in his hand, Cryptic Command, he has a tremendous number of options here. He could counter either spell, Bloodbraid Elf, or Scavenging Ooze. He could bounce the Tarmogoyf, or he could draw a card. And that's not even to mention that he also has Snapcaster Mage, Logic Knot, and Kolaghan's Command available. But it looks like he's going to make the most defensive play possible, which I like given the situation of countering the Bloodbraid Elf, bouncing Tarmogoyf, taking no damage from the attack that turn.
Kolaghan's Command here taking care of the Scavenging Ooze. Now 3 more cards into the yard for the Knot, 1 mana left. Here's another Bloodbraid Elf for Sahak. Finds another Tarmogoyf.
Okay, that's just what he needed. He needed 2 pretty potent threats to hit the battlefield that turn, because if he's not able to keep the pressure on Corey, Corey's hand is so powerful in the long game that Corey would have a great chance of stabilizing this position even from a really bad start.
Corey Burkhart at 7 life. Sahak 15.
There's also this Raging Ravine to worry about, so it's very dangerous for Corey to ever tap his mana on his main phase and take down the threat of a Cryptic Command, because Raging Ravine hits hard, especially against an opponent who's at 7 life.
There's Snapcaster Mage from Burkhart.
But no relevant targets in the graveyard. This is just to trade against Bloodbraid Elf. The good news is that Corey does have Logic Knot available. So if Sahak's, for example, uses Kolaghan's Command to try to kill the Snapcaster Mage, Corey has that covered. He can use Logic Knot and make sure it doesn't resolve. But Sahak can do Kolaghan's Command and Tarmogoyf, overloading the permission spells, and that'll make for a pretty good turn here.
There we go, Kolaghan's Command here for Oi. There's the Logic Knot from Burkhart.
This is also good because it forces Corey to delve away his whole graveyard, and the only way Corey really gets back in this game is if he can double spell, for example, a turn where he plays Tasigur for 1 or 2 mana and has something else powerful to back it up. And if you take away that possibility, Corey's going to have a really, really hard time winning this game if he can only play 1 spell per turn.
Snapcaster's going to jump in front of Bloodbraid Elf here for the trade. And we're going to fetch up a land. Find a swamp. And Tarmogoyf number 2.
So I do hope they have the life totals correct, because keep in mind the enchantment, the Search for Azcanta, did get delved away. Oh, but there's a Nile Spellbomb, so the Tarmogoyf is 5/6. This does seem accurate.
Corey Burkhart at only 2 life here.
And now he's in the unenviable position of basically needing to Cryptic every turn. He's just going to get some information, see the last card in Sahak's hand, but effectively commit suicide with that Kolaghan's Command.
All right, so our match is all tied up here. 1 game apiece between Grixis Control and Jun. As players head back to the boards for game number 3. How much do you think anything is going to change here, depending on who's on the play and who's on the draw?
It changes a little bit, but not nearly as much as some of the more fast, proactive matchups that we see in Modern. This is more about early turn sequencing, things like Corey having Logic Knot available to counter Sahak's turn 2 play, things like Corey having 4 mana for Cryptic Command the turn after Sahak can deploy his 3 mana Planeswalker. So it's more about early turn sequencing and not so much about huge insurmountable advantage. It's still going to be a gritty game where these players are fighting over every little bit of card advantage they can get.
You mentioned Corey being able to double spell as something that was really important to try and get him back into that game later on.
Yeah, precisely. And this is one of the subtle strengths of Grixis Control is access to the Delve cards. Tasigur in particular, at face value, not a super exciting card. It's sort of like an overpriced, Tarmogoyf, which is not even that amazing of a card in Modern. But it allows Corey to navigate to these situations where he can deploy a threat or a defensive blocker on a turn where he doesn't really have to invest a lot of mana. And if you can have that roadblock and some instant speed defense to back it up, that's a lot different than simply casting one spell and hoping it's good enough to stop your opponent. So just giving Corey more flexibility, more control over his mana situation, and just more options in the mid game, especially when he's fighting from behind.
Do you think if Corey draws land, or whatever early on in the game goes in his favor there? No question.
Yeah, I think that game was going to heavily advantage the player who drew their land first, and you saw that Corey only really needed a second land to get going. He could have played the Search for Escanta, and then once the Assassin's Trophy was drawn out of Sehak's hand, he's really all set in terms of his mana. But it was just a little too long with only one land for him to stabilize.
As we get ready for game number 3 here, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but how do you just feel generally, despite the fact that Grixis is Corey's wheelhouse, about Grixis Control as a choice this weekend, as far as the metagame is concerned?
It's not my favorite. Like I said, I really, really value the ability to get some easy wins and have a nice proactive game plan that you can count on. And Grixis just doesn't have that. You're never really winning a game before turn 6 or 7, and there's a lot that can go wrong when you put yourself in that situation. So it's just a case of why not make it a little easier on yourself. If I'm a player who doesn't already have Corey's background, I'm not going to go to the trouble of learning to master Grixis when it's a deck where I have to put every single puzzle piece into its perfect place in order to score a win, whereas I could just choose humans or Tron or Burn or something like that and make things a little bit easier to achieve a comparable win rate.
But Reed, what if I like making life hard on myself?
Well, then, choose Grixis. Magic is about expressing yourself. It's about having fun. It's not just about choosing the best deck every single time, and that's part of why Modern's a great format.
Absolutely, and you see a keep there from Corey Burkhart. One scar to the top, one scar to the bottom on the 6s, and we are off to the races here. Game number 3, the deciding game in this match here in round number 5.
So I think we're going to see a much different game than we saw in the first two. Our first two games were largely impacted by a player missing land drops. This time it looks like both players have their early lands, but not much early pressure, which means that we're going to settle in for a long game. Sehak's going to be trying to resolve his 3-mana spells. I see he has Liliana the Last Hope, Fulminator Mage, maybe a Kitchen Finks if I saw correctly, and Corey's going to be fighting through those cards with Logic Knot, Cryptic Command, seeing if he can establish his mana, get his legs underneath him before we get to the mid-game.
Okay, command the draw there for Burkhart. No mana troubles as of yet. So young Pyromancer is going to hit the table.
Perhaps a little bit of a surprise sideboard tech. If I was in Sehak's position, I would be sideboarding out most of my creature removal. I'd say, you know what? Corey's got Tasigur. I can handle that with Liliana of the Veil, maybe like 1 or 2 well-placed Assassin's Trophies, but I would not be necessarily expecting this young Pyromancer. And particularly on the draw, Liliana Last Hope is a very poor answer to young Pyromancer. So you set this up well, Maria, when you asked me if anything would change based on the play and draw. And this is exactly the type of sequencing issue that I was bringing up. It's right. Liliana being able to answer the turn 2 creature or not being able to answer the turn 2 creature. And in this case, Sehak might just pass the turn and young Pyromancer could run away with the game.
All right, let's see what happens here. Critical turn for Sahak, facing down that young Pyromancer. There's a look at Liliana the Last Hope.
Oh boy, that would be an amazing answer. You can imagine if Corey had been on the draw, if he plays turn 2 Pyromancer into Sahak's turn 3 Liliana the Last Hope, it's effectively over right there, but not the case in this game, as Corey could now have shields up if he has something like Logic Knot in his hand.
There's Scavenging Ooze from Sahak this turn. So let's see if young Peasy can form an army, at least a mini one. Field of Ruin for Corey. Looks like a Kolaghan's command here.
All right, so this is a really good turn for Corey, as he's going to be able to get a good clean 2-for-1 and a board advantage. However, shields are down, and if Liliana Last Hope comes down and eats that young Pyromancer, things could get very bad for Corey very quickly.
All right, so down goes the Scavenging Ooze. In comes the Pyromancer. Sahak at 16. Elemental Token joining the party for Burkhart. How are you feeling if you're in Sahak's shoes right now?
I am just so excited to be casting this Liliana.
Boom! Liliana the Last Hope hits the table for Sahak Oi.
Now Corey desperately needs a Lightning Bolt here to be able to attack for 1 and finish off the Liliana with Lightning Bolt, because otherwise Sahak is untapping with the Planeswalker. He can either pick off the Elemental for free, in fact at a profit of 1 loyalty, or he can start minusing to get value, return some of those important creatures like Scavenging Ooze. Untapping with a Planeswalker, certainly one of the hallmarks of a player running away with a matchup like this.
Liliana's +1. Target creature gets -2/-1 until your next turn. Her -2, you get to mill 2. Then you can return a creature card to your hand. And of course, the ultimate, you just get to start spamming zombies.
Okay, so Kalidas, pretty good here if Corey gets to untap with it. This is going to make it dangerous for Sahak to play a creature-based game, but the best possible scenario for Sahak is deploying Liliana of the Veil, having both Planeswalkers taking care of both creatures. That would be effectively.
I see an Assassin's Trophy in hand here.
Yeah, that's good too. You know, Assassin's Trophy is sometimes card disadvantage. We saw it be very, very poor in game number 2, where Corey actually needed his lands more than he needed his non-land permanents. But in this case, where Sahak's already doing pretty well, being able to answer the key threat at virtually any cost is really good, and that's the power of Assassin's Trophy.
So an island is the replacement for Kalitas there for Corey Burkhart. Thought Scour, 2 into the yard, 1 into the hand. It's a land.
But a relevant land, Creeping Tar Pit.
That's true. There's the Tar Pit.
And with Lightning Bolt in hand, Corey can manage the Liliana by either attacking it and bolting it, or if Sahak chooses to use the -2 ability, just bolting it outright. He also has Counter Squall in hand in case Sahak deploys another Planeswalker or a discard spell, something like that. And yeah, we see him pick up Liliana of the Veil there.
Tick up on Last Hope. There's Fulminator Mage.
Okay, so nice clean answer to Creeping Tar Pit, cannot be Counter Squalled. And this is going to make it a lot more likely that Sahak gets to untap with his Liliana the Last Hope. You can see him really, really prioritizing loyalty there, not willing to minus it into burn range.
Burkhart on 14, Oi on 12. And a really interesting matchup here between Grixis Control and Jund. Action to Burkhart.
So his hand is kind of poor at this stage. He doesn't have much he can do other than just force the issue on the Fulminator Mage. But
Which
he's going to do it.
Yep. Tar Pit down, Fulminator Mage down, and passes the turn back over to Sahak. Liliana ticks up, and here is Bloodbraid Elf. Finds a Scavenging Ooze. And it's good. In comes the Elf. Burkhart down to 11.
Dire straits for Corey here. He's got to decide what to do with Lightning Bolt. You might think, all right, I'll just bolt the Scavenging Ooze, but he's going to pause and think, what is his actual route to victory here? It's probably going to involve drawing another Lightning Bolt, a Snapcaster Mage, a Cryptic Command, something powerful, because if he just picks up a land off the top, he's done for.
Burkhart asking himself the critical question, what can I do to win this game? Bolt on the Ooze at the end of the turn. Scour the draw. And it's a land. And he just has to say go. There's the plus on the Last Hope. Just a party of Lilianas in Seahawk's hand. Bloodbraid Elf in for another 3. Burkhart down to 8.
Now, you can see that if Corey had found Cryptic Command, he would have an opportunity to get back in this game by bouncing the Liliana Last Hope at 7 loyalty. But Seahawk just putting himself in the best possible position against an opponent who might not be holding Cryptic Command and really putting him to the test of, you better have it now or else you're done. So Corey needing something to make sure this Liliana doesn't ultimate, because his deck is not capable of beating that emblem. So he needs hopefully Cryptic Command, or at minimum a burn spell. Something like Kolaghan's Command could at least get the ball rolling by returning a Snapcaster Mage, but
buying him some time.
If that Liliana goes ultimate, this game is over.
All right, here we go. Big draw for Corey Burkhart coming up. Didn't quite see what it was.
All right.
Tassiger.
Well, it's a lot. He can activate it right away on this turn, but that's a lot of cards to try to delve away. And I think we're going to wind up seeing Seahawk simply give Corey something that doesn't interact with Liliana, pop the ultimate, and then the emblem is going to run away with this game.
Liliana's emblem says at the beginning of your end step, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So it gets out of hand almost immediately.
So you see Corey, he's leaving all his burn spells, and he's leaving all his cards that can draw him into burn spells, because he needs to either hit this Liliana, or if it does, the emblem does happen, then his only route to victory is to deal damage directly to Seahawk, and he's not going to be able to get through with ground attackers. So we're talking about bolt you, Snapcaster, bolt you, as his only real way to get back in the face of an emblem, and he's not going to have a long time to assemble that.
All right, so we are delving away there. Those cards to play Tasker for a single black mana. And we've got this activation here. Sayak's going to take a peek.
So you see Seahawk right away going for a 3-mana spell. He's just thinking, you know what, Corey? Any card that you can't cast right now is not going to be enough. So he might give Kolaghan's Command. He might give... he's actually going to give Thought Scour. So this does give Corey the unlikely out of Thought Scouring and drawing Lightning Bolt to stay in the game.
All right, here we go. There's the pass, there's the draw. And there is the emblem. There's another Liliana. Tassiger is going to go down. Bloodbraid in for another 3. The zombie party begins for Seahawk. Tasker and Fatal Push in hand for Burkhart.
Yeah, so Corey just on the ropes by every metric here. He's facing down a lethal attack in addition to an emblem and a Planeswalker that are both threatening a long-term advantage. So it's a long way back here. Without something that dramatically changes the board state, like a Snapcaster Mage or a Kolaghan's Command, I think this game is over.
Corey's going to fight it out, though. Here's Tassiger. Oi, cool as a cucumber. There at this point in the game. Don't blame him. He is sitting pretty here. And a pass back.
I like Corey's choice to pass here to play around discard spell instead of just activating Tasker on the main phase.
Raging Ravine, the play there for Seahawk. There's Fatal Push on a zombie. There's the activation and a block.